Ladies and gentlemen, your Florida's Hockey Podcast. 3, 2, 1.
Welcome back. It is Florida's favorite hockey podcast. Hi, everybody. How do you like us so far? It's episode number 30 of the Cats and Bolts podcast coming to you live to you from the Podcast Junkie studio in downtown beautiful Boca Raton, Florida. It's Florida's favorite and most viewed hockey show. I'm Rod Peterson. She's the co-host, Serena Taylor. And it's going to blow your mind. You know by now that it's the Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning and lining up in the Stanley Cup playoffs beginning this weekend, but not everybody knew that. We just found that out on Tuesday night. I've got, if you can believe, 15 points to talk about in the next 45 minutes max, and about half of those are viewer questions. It's just the right amount of viewer questions. You've answered the bell as we talk about this series, but Serena, I will just get into it by saying, how are you doing? What are you thinking? What's up?
I'm excited for the playoffs to start. I'm really excited for this series. Obviously, this benefits our podcast. Duh.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't it? But I am super excited for, I'm just really jazzed up. It's going to be a good playoff.
Honestly, so am I. So I just want to, I just want to send out a thank you to DraftKings, of course, our title sponsor, Beach House Pompano, and Boresco. When we have live guests down here, they get gift cards to the Beach House and also Boresco. We don't have any live guests here, so we gave the gift card to Benny Boy. Ben will be gracing them with his presence. I took it as a sign from God, and I'm not going to say who I asked to come down and be part of our preview special. Let's just say they're all Panthers people, but they were busy. It's go time. And I took it as a sign from God. It's supposed to be just you and me.
We usually do, and we always get the best feedback when it's just the two of us.
Yeah, we love our guests.
Yeah,
but
our guests are amazing, and we're very grateful that they come down, but we can really fire it up.
Yeah.
Because I'm not quite as vocal sometimes with our guests as I am when it's just the two of us.
I didn't notice. Okay, so before we get, Tampa Bay, Florida, going to meet in round one of the Stanley Cup playoffs. It's sort of a how did we get here sort of thing. I was laughing and calling Doug MacLean, the former Panthers coach, a savant, that he called in December that it would be the Leafs and the Panthers in round one. And for the last 3.5 months, it looked like it would be. And come Tuesday night, pretty wild night, Serena. We went into the American Bank Arena. Thank you, Panthers, for... we were thinking Austin Matthews may or may not score his 70th goal tonight, but we're going to watch for that. And this could be or will be a Panthers-Leafs playoff preview. We left. Neither one happened. Matthews didn't score. And all of a sudden, it's the Leafs and the Bruins in round one and the Panthers and Lightning. It was a wild night in there.
I don't think anyone saw this coming. No one was talking about it. It wasn't on anybody's radar. It was like, yeah, if Boston loses and Florida wins, but what were the odds of Boston losing to Ottawa and whatever? A lot of people were watching all of the other games, Montreal and Detroit, Washington and the Flyers. Everybody was watching all those games to see who was going to sneak in. And nobody, all of a sudden about the second period, everybody's like, wait a second. Ottawa's beating Boston 2-0 right now. You guys know that, right? And then when the Panthers pulled ahead, it was like, wait a minute here. Changes everything quickly to all of a sudden now the Lightning and the Panthers play.
And that's where we are opening up this weekend in Sunrise. Now, a couple things that I do want to say before I get to the viewer questions. Number one, remember Paul Maurice saying, everybody relax. Remember how tense he was 2 weeks ago? And I will take a moment and pat myself on the back, because I will say when I'm wrong. It doesn't happen that often, so I'm okay with that. But I said, everybody listen to Paul Maurice and relax. They're a good team, actually a great team with a really good coach. They'll be fine. I don't think you thought they were going to fall apart either, the way they were going. They're rolling into the playoffs on a 4-game winning streak and playing at the top of their game, I think.
I personally disagree. I don't think that they're playing at the top of their game. Last night, watching the Leafs dominated in the first period. Mm-hmm. Now, last night in the game on Tuesday night, both teams were not firing on all cylinders. There were players that were not playing, that were scratched for whatever reason. It wasn't a full the rink wasn't even sold out. I think everybody's just kind of waiting for the playoffs to happen, right? But what I saw last night was Toronto dominated them again in the first period. The second period, when the Panthers scored their first goal, it was a bang, bang, bang passing play. And I was just about to say that's the first passing play that the Panthers have executed that has had more than one pass. And all of a sudden they put the puck in the net. So if they're stick to stick, tape to tape on their passes, they play much better. But the first period last night, they didn't have a passing sequence or for what is worth the entire period.
Yeah, well, I don't know what happened to the Leafs. They just quit playing in the second period, and that's for the Leafs. There's enough podcasts about them talking about that. So I agree with you. I saw the same thing. But there was remember we looked at the shot clock? It was 30-plus shots in the second period for the Panthers. We're like, what? Who's counting these? But whatever. I'll just say stick-to-tick passes, I get it. But I think when they're bullying teams and in their face and playing a bruising style, that's what they got back to. That's not the way they were playing when they lost 9 of 11. That's how I think they're more themselves, and they clinched a banner on Tuesday night.
I think, from what I've seen over the last couple of months, I feel like the Panthers play better when the other team starts hitting them first.
Yeah.
They're not the team that's going to go out and start laying the body. They are the team that's going to get the sticks up after the whistle, trying to draw penalties, doing all that stupid crap. But when we watched them play, I forget who it was, whoever was here Saturday.
Buffalo.
As soon as Buffalo started laying the body, Florida started doing the same thing and they started playing better, but they don't take the initiative themselves to hit. When you get to the playoffs, the first thing you have to do is start body checking. You have to. Your team's not going to have any gumption to want to play any harder. It makes a huge difference in the game.
Sure. Well, they know that. They went to the Stanley Cup final last year, as you know, and I think they're going to be just fine. And again, quoting Paul Maurice, relax. Now, before I do get to the first question, which comes from our boy Danny, one is this, just our thoughts on the series. I didn't want this. You're going to see this reflected by our viewers' questions. They want to know who we're cheering for, who we think's going to win. I didn't want to see the Panthers and the Lightning in the playoffs, or if it did happen, not till the conference final. You know, the reason this is cats and bolts is so we can talk about two teams, and if one goes really deep, which could still happen, one of the two could, we'll talk about those two teams. I don't want to see them cannibalize each other so early. That's all.
Then win more games. If you don't like the way the cookie crumbles, you should have won some more games, Tampa.
I'm talking about myself. I'm just saying I didn't want to see this series.
I know,
for
but
these
everybody's
reasons.
always like, I wish they would play later on. Well, that's not the way the playoff format is. And we all agree that the playoff format, nobody seems to really like it. It doesn't really make a lot of sense. But the odds of them playing each other, the way the season went, I'm not surprised.
Yeah, well, it's funny, too. Our guy, Colby Guy from Florida Hockey Now, I saw him like last week tweeting, it would take almost a miracle for the Panthers and Lightning to meet in round one. And here we are. So, moving on to the viewer questions from Danny Paulino. By the way, Dodges, we got something coming for you, too. I got this Panthers jersey the other night at the game. There's some consternation over whether it's a fake, cheap knockoff or not. I don't think so. I compared it with some fans on the concourse. Like the stitching, everything. It seems legit, but we need to get a Lightning jersey to put up here too. And I know a family that might have one or two.
We'll have to steal.
Yeah, Dodges, can you answer the bell and get us a Lightning jersey in time for next week? Because the series will still be going. We'll put it up over Serena's shoulder. So Danny says his question was, who will be the biggest factors in the series? And when I initially read that, I thought he meant what will be the biggest factors, but he specifically said who. Mm-hmm. And for me, it's who's been the factors all year. We'll get to the Lightning perspective in a second, but for the Panthers, it's going to be Sam Reinhart's got to be key. What do you end up with, 57 goals? I think, certainly the most since Bure. Number one, Sam Reinhart for me, honestly. And Bob in goal. It'll be a tremendous goaltending matchup. But I will say the guys that carried you through the regular season need to be the guys in the playoffs. That's what I think.
Well, as far as the Panthers are concerned, I said this last week or the week before, and I stand by this. I don't feel like Sam Reinhart is a difference maker out there for them. I really don't. I think the biggest thing for the Panthers is going to be Bobrovsky, because when you have a guy like Kucherov, you can't defend a guy like Kucherov, whether he's passing, whatever he's doing. He's so dominant. And Bobrovsky's going to have to be, as the last line of defense, the one that's in there. I think that it's also going to depend on how Verhaeghe plays. I saw a different side of Verhaeghe against Toronto that I know he's coming off a bit of an injury, but I saw a couple mistakes he made that I wasn't really used to. So that was a little interesting. But I think if Barkov steps up and plays like he did a couple of weeks ago, one of the best games I've seen him play all year, that's going to be a difference maker to me because Barkov is the guy. He's your captain. And if he's not pulling his weight, nobody else will be.
Yeah, and Tkachuk's always going to be in the middle of it too. He's that guy. But I've been watching Sam Reinhart since he was 16. I know what you're saying, but his 57 goals say he is a
sure, but okay.
Factor.
But Zach Hyman had 54 or whatever for Edmonton. As soon as McDavid didn't play for 3 games, Hyman didn't score any goals because McDavid feeds him. I'm not a believer that Hyman is a difference maker in a game. It's the same way I feel about Reinhart. He's not a difference maker. He's not going to make or break. The playoffs are coming now. You think people look at the way that Florida defended Austin Matthews. There's no way they were going to let him get a shot on that. They had 2 guys on him every time he was in the offensive zone. Every time. That's what it's going to be with Reinhart. They're not going to let him stand around.
I'm interested to watch Tarasenko too. He was acquired for this. And I got to, hey, listen, I don't know about you. He's playing his balls off, man. And Paul Maurice has singled him out, saying he's been everything is advertised and more than we'd hoped. I don't see a lot of real glaring absences in his game. He's working really hard. I don't know how long it'll continue, but I think he could be a big factor.
Well, he has been playing with Barkov, which makes a big difference for him. But like I said, in that Leafs game, he went into the corner. The puck was in the corner. And I pointed it out to you, he was so scared he was going to get hit that he didn't even play the puck. What are you doing? Play the puck, take the hit, just like Toronto did. Took the hit to clear the puck out of his own zone. I think it was Benoit maybe, when they were killing a penalty. He was bracing himself for the hit and he didn't play the puck. Come on, man.
Yeah, well, they call him Tarasenko for a reason. He's there to score goals. We'll see if he does. From a Lightning side, the usual suspects. I know we talked about this last week. I go back to that game in Pittsburgh, the last minute. Who's out there? Stamkos, Hedman, Point, Kucherov, and in goal, the guy. Voted the best goalie in the NHL again by players. It'll be the guys.
Well, the big thing for them is going to be Stamkos. You know, this year I don't think was Stamkos' best year. And back on one of our other shows, we were talking about his contract and is this going to affect everything, whatever. I don't think this was the best we saw of Stamkos. I personally don't feel like he was a threat on the power play this year. And if he can turn that around, it's going to make all of the difference on their power play. It reminds me of John Tavares. He can be a threat, but I really didn't feel like this year he was. So Stamkos is going to be this way or this way, and that to me is going to be the biggest thing.
Tell you what, he's a captain for a reason. The NHL PR department put out a stat the other day. The most goals scored in the whole league since April 1st is Stamkos with 12. He's been on. He's like Ovi, who's up there.
2 weeks.
Just saying, when it was the playoffs were on the line, are we going to get in or not?
That's exactly what I'm saying. Is he's going to be the guy that is going to make or break this?
Yeah, and that's why I pointed him up.
Thank you.
Okay, next question is Ben. Our boy Benny Cubs. It's more of a comment and a bit of a rhetorical question. He says, who's ready for the playoffs? And thank you, Ottawa. Because Ottawa went into Boston and won on Tuesday night. The Bruins losing nullified them clinching. Florida got first. There was this innate, Benny's not saying it, but I will say this. People are saying, did they throw the game? Did the Bruins throw the game? Did the Leafs throw the game? That doesn't happen, people. Yeah, Ben's got it right. Thank you, Ottawa, for going in there and winning. If first place is that important to you, which I think it is, Serena said it earlier. People have been ready for the playoffs for a long time, probably for the last 6 weeks at least. I'm talking about not just the fans, but the teams too.
Yeah, I don't. Thank you, Ottawa might be a bit of a strong comment, Ben, because Florida was either going to play Tampa or Toronto, and I wouldn't want to play either one of those teams.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. You have to win anyway. It doesn't matter who you play in the first round. It doesn't matter who you play in the last round. You have to win. But I hear what he's saying, but I don't really think secretly, I don't think the Panthers fans were wanting to play Toronto.
And by the way, that's coming up. But we'll come back on that as to who was the better fit for the Panthers. But Kevin wants to know why you think Andrew Imber is the best NHL public address announcer.
There's a lot. There are a lot of reasons why Andrew's the best. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met. He's one of my favorite people on the planet. He's just a good human being, and I just love him so much. But Andrew puts in a lot of work, and he cares about his job, and he sounds fantastic. And it's hard to find. We've worked in broadcasting for years. A lot of times you get people that have a great voice, but they're not a good broadcaster. You get people that are decent broadcasters, but they have a terrible sound, and they just get hired because they come cheap or whatever happens to be.
And a lot aren't good people too.
Right, and there's just a mishmash. Andrew's like that perfect storm of all of these amazing things, and he really does put his heart and soul into that job, and that's why he's so great.
I don't know who hired him, but that person should take a bow because, again, Andrew also loves the Panthers, right? It's very clear.
I was asking him last night about working while he was, is he ever going to miss, somebody asked him if there's a game plan, if the team has a game plan if he's sick. He's like, nope. I'm like, well, what are you going to do if you're sick? Nope. I'll whisper if I have to. He's like, I have never missed a game. I will never miss a game. Yeah, he's dedicated.
I was thinking this at a recent game. He was belting out, "Hello, Panthers fans." I'm like, that huge voice is coming out of that little body. It doesn't compute.
And it's not like he's like an infant size, but
he's small.
When like I said, it should be coming out of someone like Peter Worrell. Like it doesn't compute.
Yeah, it doesn't compute. Alec wants to know, moving on to the next question, who wins and in how many games? The Battle of Florida.
Are you asking me? Because I
have
honestly...
mine. I have mine. You want me to go first? You scared?
I'm not scared. I just never like picking these things. This one is, I don't even know the answer.
Okay.
You go.
Just to back up for a second, somebody had asked me on my other show, the television show earlier in the week, who do you want the Panthers to play, Leafs or Tampa? And I thought Tampa would be the easier series. I really did. Doesn't matter now because they're playing Tampa. I think the Panthers will win in 6. The Panthers won the season series, 2-1. We saw all the games live. I think the Panthers are just a better team.
Just so weird they only played 3 times.
That's wrong.
That's what I'm laughing at. Yeah.
They played Detroit as many times.
They played the Islanders more times.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense, and I hope that is changed for next year with the scheduling. But I'll go back and say, Panthers in 6.
Well, I guess that means I have to say something. These series that we've seen between these two teams in the past have never been lengthy. They're just bing, bing, bing.
Tampa swept them last time.
Right. One team is always just more dominant. And it has been Tampa because they've been strong, right? They didn't play last year, whatever. But I feel like Tampa can beat them. Listen, anybody can beat anybody. I always say that. You just never know. You never know what's going to happen. Yes, I believe Florida could easily beat Tampa. But I also believe people are underestimating Tampa. I don't imagine Paul Maurice or his players are going to underestimate Tampa. But one thing I'm going to tell you right now, from what I've seen from the Panthers over the past couple of months, is the lack of discipline. They're not staying out of the penalty box. And if they try to pull that crap against a John Cooper team, John Cooper has those guys. They're seasoned vets. They know how to be disciplined. They know how to stay out of the penalty box. Florida's going to have to figure out how, because they're not going to be able to get under their skin the way they get under the Leafs skin, the way they get under Carolina's skin sometimes. It's not going to be the same against Tampa.
So, did you pick?
I said Tampa.
Okay.
I think I said that. I was supposed to say that. If I had to guess, I don't know. It could be 4 games, could be 7 games. I'll say 7. I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, you make quite a few cool points there. John Cooper and Paul Maurice, they've never met in this situation before, Florida versus Tampa. The teams have, but they haven't. And if you think the coaching doesn't have a huge impact in this, you're nuts.
Listen, the coaches get the players to where they need to be. When it gets to the playoffs, realistically, it's on the players now. It's a physical toll that's being taken on their body. It's all that kind of stuff. But in a split decision, when you call a timeout, when you pull your goaltender, what lines you put out. If you're at home, who are you playing against who? Who are you playing against Barkov? Who are you playing against Kucherov? That's the stuff that matters. People don't see that stuff when they're just watching the game. That's the difference. And like I said, John Cooper has his guys ready. I still feel like the Panthers play with a lot more immaturity than the Lightning, and that's why I'm picking the Lightning.
Yeah, fair. Well, I was on the radio in Edmonton last week, and they said, who's the better team, Florida or Tampa? And I said, well, they're both great teams for different reasons. And Tampa's the OGs. We mentioned their names. They're the OGs right now because they've done it and they've been there. Florida's getting there. They're probably, in my mind, a more talented team, 1-20, and the goalies are a wash. And the coaches are damn near a wash too. The more I think about it, I might say 7 games here. I don't know if we could take a 7-game series though.
I will. What I will say is this: I feel like Tampa itself, the Lightning are a stronger team. And you say 1-20, and I hear you, but here's what happens in Tampa. Guys like Nick Paul that you don't expect, they come out of the woodwork and they're the hero. And I don't see anybody deep in the Panthers lineup that's going to be that guy. You know, like Lomberg plays. Well, Lomberg's not going to be that guy. It's just going to depend. I'm not saying the Panthers aren't capable. Absolutely not. They just don't have the same amount of maturity. And the amount of games you play in the playoffs as a player, that has a lot to do with it as well. We're seeing the Matthew Tkachuk that played for the Calgary Flames. We're not seeing the Tkachuk that played last year for Florida. He's not the same player he was last year.
He had a good year. He didn't have a great year.
And
the playoffs are a new season.
He's undisciplined. He takes a lot of penalties, trying to drop penalties.
He has been. I'm hoping he smartens up in the playoffs.
He should have had more penalty. He should have had 2 penalties against Toronto that he never got called for.
Well, actually, we're back to Danny's thing. He said who will be the factors, and we answered that. But with regards to what will be the factors, going into a series, you would say special teams is going to be a factor, goaltending is going to be a factor. Those are the obvious ones. Coming out of a series, you're usually talking about, and also health, and I don't know where the teams are there, but calls are big. You just imagine what Tkachuk should have had? That just jogged in my mind.
Listen, I could probably count on, it would take 2 hands over the last 2 years that I could count about the number of horrendous officiating calls that happened in the Stanley Cup playoffs that affected teams. Horrendous calls. And it's not getting any better. So they're going to have to be disciplined. Tkachuk never gets called. He has immunity for God knows what reason. He just does. Tampa doesn't play like that, though. He's not going to be able to get under their skin. It's different. They don't
play cheap, yep.
No, not all.
From the Alexander Barkov fan page, he says, who are you all cheering for? And then he gives me the eyes emoji.
Yeah.
Who are you cheering for? Look, I'm not cheering for anybody. Like I said, I didn't want this series to happen. I would love to see the 2 teams go as far as they can, but as I said earlier, they're cannibalizing each other. We happen to live here. But you know what? We've had opportunities to move to Tampa. We could do that. We work remotely from home. This is our home. This is our friends are here. I'm still not picking. Benny's here. Couldn't leave Benny. I'm just saying I'm not picking. How about a great series and nobody gets hurt?
Rod's always, it's funny because I'm always on the fence about picking the winner, whereas you're always on the fence about who you want to win. It's black and white for me when I see a series on who I want, what team I want to win. It's just my human nature. So I'm definitely pulling for Tampa in this series.
Well, in that case, I'll go with Florida. Plus, I already picked them to win, so.
I guess it's kind of natural.
We're just going to move to a couple of the other series in the East, and then I have a couple other notes, and we'll wind it up. Leafs Bruins are playing. I won't ask you for a prediction unless you want to, but I think Toronto's going to win. They came in here the other night. We didn't talk about it because that's in the past already, but they seemed loose. They seemed relaxed. Ryan Reeves was like bumping Mitch Marner in the warm-up. They were a different team from a year ago. Problem was we got into the game, and I looked and saw Max Domi and Mark Giordano in the press box. I'm like, the Leafs aren't taking this game seriously.
Well,
so there's that.
I don't really think.
But we're resting guys.
Yeah,
whatever.
Panthers were too, which is totally fine. It's understandable.
I'm just saying, Boston choked in the playoffs last year. They choked this week, nailing down first. They're chokers. Boston, that's what I think.
Yeah.
And Toronto's going to win it.
Well, here, I don't know. I can't even decide. I have no idea.
Sorry,
because
Johnny
they're
O.
both chokers. They're both. I mean, we're picking the battle of the choke here.
Who's the biggest chokers?
But it's. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know who's going to win.
I'm not
that.
asking you for a
But
winner. It should be a good one, though.
Going back to the Lightning and the Panthers get to sit for 5 days before they have to play. Teams like when the Panthers were finished, there was teams like Edmonton and Colorado, and Edmonton still had two games left to play. A lot of teams have to play Thursday, and then they got to turn around and start the playoffs on Saturday.
Boo-hoo.
I'm just saying, there's a big difference from the guy. Like, come on, man. There's a big difference in your legs if you get to sit for 4 days.
Breaks. What I say, calls
It's
and
not
luck.
it's not a break. It's the way the schedule ended
That's
up.
luck. That's a break. They caught a nice break.
Yeah.
Rangers Capitals, literally David and Goliath. The Rangers have had their best season ever.
They have. I want to see the Rangers win this. I definitely want. Yes, absolutely. I want the Rangers to win. I think the Rangers are going to probably win in 4 or 5, but I never count out Ovi because Ovi's a Russian, and you never count out the Russians. Ever, 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 ever. That's it.
Yeah, well, New York's got Russians too.
No. I know. Well, not like Ovi. They don't.
Shesterkin.
The Rangers don't have other than Shesterkin.
Panarin.
One day I'll get to finish my point, and then we can end the show at some point today.
Okay.
The Rangers don't have a lot of playoff depth on their team. They got a lot of young guys. Washington does have that experience. And even as a franchise, if you don't have a lot of players that have playoff depth as a franchise, recently the Capitals, we won a Stanley Cup. He's going to bring the heat.
Yeah, I'm listening. I wanted to bring up, by the way, I read this week too, Panarin and Connor Bedard led the NHL in jersey sales this year. Carolina Islanders. Here's another one. I saw somebody whining the other day on Facebook when the Panthers are they getting disrespected by ESPN. Who cares? Carolina, nobody's talking about them. That's probably a really good thing for them.
Oof.
Right?
I don't know why anybody thinks the Panthers are getting disrespected because whatever. Carolina is that dark horse. They are going to come in hot. And whoever ends up playing those guys, because they're going to get out of the first round, whoever ends up playing in the second round is going to be in for some heartbreak. What happened to Carolina last year in Florida is not going to happen again this year. No chance. No chance. They got too many good players. And they just, again, when you have a head coach that's been at the helm for as long as Rod Brind'Amour has, he's not messing around.
Apparently his contract's up at the end of the year. I just heard that today. So everything hinges on this for Carolina. So they probably will win, but I will be cheering for Patrick Roy and the Islanders because I'm a goalie guy and I'm a Patrick Roy guy, and he's got them into the playoffs after they fired Lane Lambert a couple of months ago.
Which I don't think anybody saw coming at the start of the year, but
Firing Lane?
The path that led to that.
Yeah. And there's that. I have just a couple last notes. What are we at for timing, Benny? 28. Okay. Yeah, we'll ride this on out. I just want to say, if you see us, particularly at Amerit Bank Arena or Amalie Arena in Tampa Bay, or if you see us on the street, say hi, take a photo. I had a guy last night do a breeze by on the concourse. He punched me in the arm. He's like, "Hey, Rod, love the show," and kept going. I'm like, "Let's stop and I'd like to get to know you." He said he watches the show. Stop, like Benny Cobbs did. Don't be afraid to stop and say hi. We'd love to meet you. That's what makes our show different from others. Another is we will be here through the spring and summer on the Cats and Bolts podcast. So no matter how long or short these playoff runs go for our teams, we're going to continue to do this show because you love July in the NHL a lot.
There's always something to talk about in hockey. I don't remember a time when I was growing up that we didn't talk about hockey in the middle of the summer. Any of the sports radio stations up there, TSN we'll lead with the Blue Jays, but then it's right into hockey. We talk about hockey every single day in Canada because that's all we really care about other than the Blue Jays. So yeah, we're here for it.
And so my point on that is you're watching this show because you love NHL hockey that much. So we're going to continue to do this through the offseason. I just wanted you to know that. Also a live show. Unless Ben was yanking our leg, we might have a live show here, right? You're looking at me like I'm not crazy. We could, hey, is that something you might be interested in? Maybe we could do contesting or something like that, and you could come down and sit on the apron of the set and watch the show live, like some people have done. Would you be willing to do that?
We've had some great people come in here, and when Mr. Chikrin, Jeff's dad, was here,
John,
visiting from Ottawa, he came and sat and watched the show. And
fun.
Jeff and I were talking about it, I don't know, a week ago or something. He said, my dad really enjoyed coming down there. Thank you guys so much for inviting him. Yeah. Jeff is just such a great human being as well. He's just a really appreciative person. And it's like, your dad can come here anytime.
That's hilarious. By the way, I don't mind saying this here. Jeff Chikrin, the other night at the hockey game, he was one of the guys that couldn't make it today because I wanted to ask him about the Arizona Coyotes moving to Salt Lake City. That's what's come down this week since our last show. And Jeff was like, well, I got to golf. It's like a job to him. If he wants to golf, that's his deal, man. I totally get it. But I said, you would never say anything bad about Arizona. Your kid played there for 7.5 years, asked for a trade, I learned afterwards. Nobody knew that he asked for a trade. I said, Chick, you don't say anything bad about anybody. I wish I could be like that. I can't bite my tongue. He goes, that's why you have a show. I'm like, I guess, if that's the nice part of it. But I think again, where we started this, I think it would be a lot of fun to have a live show. I just want to know your thoughts, everybody. DM us on Instagram, Twitter, however you want to get a hold of us. And besides that, the last note that I had here, some guy wrote me, and he says, you're the Cats and Bolts podcast. Why do you have so much Leafs love? Because from the warm-up the other night, I had Leafs photos, Leaf videos, and I'm like, brah. If we shot the same thing every warm-up, it would get boring to me.
Plus, we were on Austin Matthews' 70-goal watch.
Yes.
And it was funny because I brought up to Rod in the press box, I said, remember a couple of years ago, we brought some friends to this game, and we were on the Austin Matthews 60-goal watch. He had 59, and we were like, get 60, get 60. Nope. Last night, can he get 70? Nope. Is he going to get it in Tampa? I don't know. They're all over him. All over him, but there's only 8 other guys that have ever scored 70 goals.
So anyways, we have our reasons for why we do things, and the reason why I'm not going to go down and film the Panthers every warm-up or the Lightning for that matter. It would get boring after a period of time. It's the Cats and Bolts podcast. We talk about all the NHL, as you can see. It's Florida's favorite hockey show, and it's NHL talk with a Florida twist. And we're done unless you have anything else to say.
Nope.
It's great job, Serena.
I know. Of course.
Good job, Benny boy. We'll see you all next week in the heart of the Stanley Cup playoffs here in the Cats and Bolts podcast.